All right, in this video we are doing a bit more analysis of A Day in the Life by the Beatles from 1967, and in this video we're going to look at Accompaniment. So to start off, I thought we would jump into verse 2 because verse 2 has some interesting things and all the verses are pretty similar, so we can analyse verse 2 first. So I thought we'd start off by just looking at some terminology. So first off, the chords are pretty simple, but you get these slash chords up here where you've got like that, and that confuses a lot of people. And what's happening is the chord on this side, on the left, that is for the right hand, and the note on the right is for the left hand. So that is confusing. So this chord here, we would play this chord. We would play a G triad in the right hand and an F sharp single note in the left hand. So it would sound like this. And a lot of people do weird things there. They play it the wrong way around, or they play two chords often. If you're a guitarist, you only play the G chord, the one on the left. So you only play this one over here. So if you're playing acoustic guitar, you'd play G, G, E minor, and you just wouldn't worry about these bass notes at all. You'd just get rid of them completely for guitar. And you can get some strange results if you make these into actual chords. So when you see some music written like this, you'll see something weird like this chord here becomes G major 7, which is true, it is G major 7, but it's not really functioning as G major 7. It's really functioning as a G with an F sharp in the bass. And this chord here can become E minor 7. You can also get some weird things like, for example, this chord here becomes a B minor even. But, you know, if you can think of it as a moving bass line, and the right hand would stay the same, the chords stay the same with a moving bass line. If you ever see a chord like this with a horizontal slash, that actually means something else totally. That means to play a triad in both hands. So that's a G triad on top of an F sharp triad. You would say, why would I ever do that? Ridiculous. Well, in some jazz music and gospel music, you would get things like a D flat and then an E flat, it's called a polychord, and it sounds really tense. It gives you this sound. Bit of fun for you. Okay, that's the chords. Looking at the bass line, just some notes is that this song is in swing 16th, so things like this are swung. I've talked about that in another video, so you can go and check that out. And then with the drum beat, it's often hard to read drum notation, but this bar over here is probably the cleanest. So this one down here, that is kick drum. Maybe I'll use that arrow. This one is snare drum. And up here with the crosses are, I guess, some sort of cymbal is the easy way to say it. That's a crash, that one. But you can have crash, ride, and hi-hat are the most common. So if we see some of those later, I'll try and point them out for you. Okay, so now let's look at actually what's happening in the music here. So as I've said before, the meter of this song is really laid down by the piano and the guitar, and the drums and bass, which are traditional for holding the rhythm, aren't really doing that. The drums are playing lead drums, which is essentially Ringo playing whatever he feels the meaning of the lyrics is, trying to match the meaning of the lyrics with drums. The Beatles called it playing lead drums. And the bass is really quite melodic, I guess, or it's quite intricate, and it has a lot of detail and a lot of movement, very busy, much more busy than we would expect from a bass line. And the piano is just laying down the pulse, as you can see most of the time. But interestingly, this bar here, which is where the vocals stop and take a little breather, there's a few little things going on here. First off, the bass plays a lovely little syncopated line there, which is really nice and worth having a listen to. And the piano does this quite, dense feel. It's this little crushed note, which is you know, it's an unusual sound and really interesting, I think. Yeah, worth having a listen to. As we look at some more things in here, we've got this F chord, which is a non-diatonic chord, quite common, quite a bluesy sound, and I've done that in another video, and that's and just an interesting non-diatonic chord. And the other thing that I think is quite interesting in this whole section is this descending bass line on these chords. Is a really common progression. Now, whether it's common because people copied the Beatles or because it has always been a common progression, I don't know, but it just is. For example, this is exactly the same chord progression as Piano Man, which would be... So yeah, really common progression. All right, let's move on, shall we? I think I've covered everything here that we need to. Oh, this middle section. Now, I've talked about this middle section a little bit before. We've got a double time feel here. And I'm not going to go through all that again, but I'll point out a few things about this accompaniment. The main thing that I think is interesting here is the way that the piano plays an arpeggio grouped in threes to make a really interesting little feel here. So if I played that, you get this, I woke up. Yeah, quite interesting little thing there. And something else I really like about this section, talking about the accompaniment, is that the bass line has a walking bass line down here. So this is almost out of the world of jazz. It's a kind of walking bass line, but it repeats, so it's probably not quite a walking bass line. And if the music was to continue over here, it happens again quite strongly, the walking bass line. And then a really strange thing that I had not noticed at all until I analysed it is this bass line, which is really unusual, is actually the melody from the end of verse 2 and kind of the melody from the end of verse 3. So yeah, amazing little thing going on there. Oh, and talking about drum parts, you can see here that we have a hi-hat line here. So these X's are on the hi-hat line. There you go. That's an example of the symbol. Let's move on. All right, so a couple of things going on. This is jumped forward about 8 bars to the middle bridge. So the harmony I've talked about in another video here, where this is a big key changing section using fifths or cycle of fifths or cycle of fourths, depending how you're thinking about it. And again, the piano and the guitar are laying down the meter. And so the bass and drums are sort of are the most interesting thing here. So the bass particularly is the most interesting thing because it's playing this really busy arpeggio line, which is great because no one else is doing a lot, so it's great. You can see there's arpeggios there, same thing here and here. And then these, if you analyse the scale degrees, these parts are kind of playing the same pattern, roughly. So yeah, quite an intricate bass line. And the drums are really interesting, I think, because the drums previously have been building tension by doing these tom fills and not having a solid beat that you can rely on that you're usually expecting. So that builds the tension and builds the tension throughout this whole song. This middle bridge, which is a long way through the song, like it's almost towards the end, is the first and only time we hear an actual proper drum beat come in. This is boom, ka, boom, boom, ka, boom, boom, ka. And it's a really common technique that's used today in say like Coldplay, and a lot of contemporary Christian music uses this technique of delaying the actual drum beat from appearing for a long time. So yeah, really interesting that the Beatles did it, I guess, first. Maybe someone else did it before them, but yeah, really fun little drum beat there. Okay, let's move on. Now, I finished with a little bit of fun here for you. So I've said the verses are all the same, but I thought I would... Sometimes you might see this score looking like this, which is in tab. So I thought, why not explain it if it was in tab? And so what we have here is a guitar tab and a bass tab. And so the first thing you need to know about reading tab is what the strings mean. So this is like if you had your guitar and you picked it up and looked at it, that's what you're looking at. So this is a little bit upside down. So we have the strings would be E, A, D, G, B, E. And then a 0 is the letters. So for example, the 0 here means this one here. We're on B. So then after that, then we can use the semitone. So we'll do this 0, that's a G. Then this 0 is a D. Then we've got 2. So we've got to go up 2 semitones now from A. So A sharp to B. And then we've got 3. So up 3 semitones. So E, well, I'm not going to count it for you, but that's a G. And then hopefully you can work out that it's 3 semitones up from E again would be G. And then if you were going to play that, obviously you would play that on guitar, but if you were trying to analyze what chord that is or something, then you would try and work out that chord. You might need to put that back into normal notation then, so you might need to draw out one of these and then write it in. So this G here would actually be down here like that. Was that too quick? I don't know. The bass tab is very similar. You just got to know it's the first 4 strings of a guitar. So again, it's like you were playing guitar, you picked it up and looked at it, so it's a little bit upside down. So this would be E, A, D, G, and then you would work out the 0 means that's the string you're on. So that first note is a G. Something like this would be D plus 4 semitones, so F sharp. And you can see the rhythm as written, so hopefully that makes sense for you. And probably the only other point I would add about tab is it's not necessarily the best way to play it. So it's quite artistic. For example, this 0 here could have been a 5 on this string, or it could be, I don't know, what is it, down here something, let's go with 10. I'm not sure if it even is 10. I'm not good enough at it, but it could be 10 on that string. And you can choose any of those Gs that you would like to. It doesn't really matter. You do what's best. So yeah, they're not hard and fast as that's how you have to play them. Somebody has to use some sort of artistic interpretation as or their skills as a bassist or guitarist to tell you what might be the easiest and best way to play that. Yeah. Okay, so that is the accompaniment for A Day in the Life. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon.